Today is Friday, October 3, 2014, the 276th day of the year. There are 89 days remaining until the end of 2014. On this day in 1873, Captain Jack and his companions are hanged for their part in the Modoc War. Tule Lake is the California-Oregon cross-border ancestral home of the Modoc tribe of original settlers. In the shadow of the imposing 14er Mount Shasta, it has to be Shasta, that Mount Shasta, and it's 2,000 feet less imposing fraternal twin Shastina. You can be reasonably certain the Modoc didn't call them that. And when the new settlers come along in 1864, they say, hey, cool, terrifically fertile farmland, wild game leaping across the Tule land everywhere into the stew pot, great place. Except for these people who are already here and have been here for 12,000 years of sadly unrecorded history, but what do you expect? They can't write, they can't read. We'll just get them to move out into the desert among their eastern rivals, the Klamath, who, oh, look, outnumber the Modoc. What is it, 10-1? Accurate numbers don't really matter because there's enough more Klamath than Modoc to make life miserable for the minority. Miserable enough so that a year later, 1865, the Modoc chief, Kintpuash, decides enough's enough and takes the tribe back to Tule Lake. The white people can't bring themselves to say the name Kintpuash or apparently the word chief either. They call him Captain Jack, as in, yo, Captain Jack. Didn't we just move your ass out of here? WTF, man. They keep moving the Modoc out and the Modoc keep coming back. Home is important. That's why they call it that. On November 29, 1872, a Modoc hothead and a Yankee soldier get into a fight. The fight turns into a brawl. The brawl becomes a battle, the Battle of Lost River. Kintpuash retreats with his Modoc followers into the lava beds. By the way, now you too can visit the lava beds near Tule Lake where so much history took place. Now you can go have lunch out there and buy souvenirs. The National Park Service has a brochure, Welcome to the Lava Beds. More than 700 caves, Native American rock art sites, historic battlefields and campsites, and a high desert wilderness experience await you. Later, World War II, American concentration camp for West Coast Japanese Americans, salubrious climate, 3 hots, a cot, plenty of barbed wire. U.S. Army guards with Thompson guns, later Nazi prisoners of war. Hotheads close to Kintpuash tell him how Yankees are. If you kill their chief, they tell him they'll give up and go home. So during a peace parley on April 11, 1873, Kintpuash and other Modocs pull out pistols. Kintpuash kills the white chief, General Edward R.S. Canby, shoots him through the brains, the only ranking general to be killed during the so-called Indian Wars. George Custer, killed 3 years later at Little Bighorn, only a lieutenant colonel. The Modoc tribesman called Boston Charlie, who's maybe 19 years old, kills a peace commissioner, the Reverend Eleazar Thomas. The white soldiers don't give up and they don't go home. They just get furious and more determined. Deep in the lava beds, Kintpuash avoids capture another couple months, but Modoc turncoats Bogus Charlie, Shack Nasty Jim, Hooker Jim, and Steamboat Frank agree to track him down and turn him in. The soldiers take him to Fort Klamath near the western terminus of the Oregon Trail, where, on this day in 1873, for the murder of General Canby, the Army executes Kintpuash. They hang him by the neck until he's dead, along with Black Jim, Shanchin John, and the young warrior Boston Charlie. On this day in 1942, history of space flight, the first successful launch of a V-2A4 rocket from Test Stand 7 at Peenemunde, Germany. It's the first man-made object to reach the edge of outer space. The V-2 rushes into production using tens of thousands of slave laborers out there in Peenemunde, the production team led by young Werner von Braun, wunderkind of Nazi rocket science, whose enthusiasm for success impresses Hitler enough to keep pouring resources into the rocket program despite a series of early failures. Every failure leads to an opportunity. The 1942 test flight proves the V-2 can be useful to the war effort. 3,000 V-2 rockets, the V is for vengeance, are deployed by the Wehrmacht against Allied urban and military targets. The V-2 comes in so fast and packs such destructive power, they say if you hear the thing, it's already too late to take cover. You're dead. 9,000 civilian and military personnel are killed by these things. 12,000 slave laborers die in camps on the production end. Everyone impressed by the sleek V-2 design and kill ratio efficiency, enough so that smooth-talking, charming young Werner with his brilliant mind and dazzling smile gets a free pass at war's end, overlooking his record as an epic-scale mass murderer to come to America, lead the space program here, together with a sizable contingent of his original Nazi V-2 team. By the mid-1950s, nuclear-armed modified V-2 rockets are a common battlefield weapon, and by 1960, even bigger rockets attain intercontinental range. Thanks, Werner, you handsome dog, you. Thanks, Hitler. On this day in 1964, the first buffalo wings are made at the Anchor Bar in Buffalo, New York. Anchor Bar opens in 1935, offering Italian-American food prepared by head chef Ivano Toscani. By 1964, the owner-operators of Anchor Bar are Teresa Bellissimo and her husband, Frank. Lots of stories float through the culinary zeitgeist about the origin of buffalo wings, and the most credible involves a misdelivery of chicken wings instead of the usual necks and backs Teresa Bellissimo typically uses for her spaghetti sauce. In those days, wings were nowhere near as popular as they are today. They were cheap and nobody gave them a second thought. So Frank says, "Teresa, what am I supposed to do with all these wings? I'm up to my knees in these things." He asks her, "Come up with something special to move these wings at the bar." Teresa deep fries the wings, and for the sauce she blends a lot of butter with Frank's red-hot vinegar-based cayenne pepper sauce for the heat. Frank's, it's like Tabasco, but with a deep bottom and spiky pepper flavor. Teresa comes up with a blue cheese dressing for dipping. Normally, chicken wings either thrown away or tossed in the stock pot. Suddenly, on this day in 1964, buffalo wings are a thing, and there's no turning back. American author and poet Jack Kerouac writes, "Because, in the end, you won't remember the time you spend working in the office or mowing your lawn. Climb that goddamn mountain." From Rutland, Vermont, this is Richard Alcott speaking.